All right, good morning, everybody. I appreciate everybody's time. I want to make sure this is valuable for you. OSB, pallets, straw, hay are going to be your fuel types. The configuration for you, both the configuration of the prop and the configuration of how you set your fires, is really going to make the difference on what your training is going to happen. Couplers are something that the flashover container has. Everybody remembers this thing from the training, right? For the two that weren't here, this is a fairly delicate device. It's not something that is really firefighter proof as much as it is just a monitor to be able to do your temperature ranges. Temperature ranges for this prop, 1,000 degrees at the ceiling is your max. Normal operating temperature is somewhere between 500 to 600 degrees, and 300 degrees on the floor is kind of that kicker for you. If the student chamber is 300 degrees on the inside, you're at that 1,000 degrees on the ceiling kind of thing. It's not impossible, but it takes a little bit repetitive fires to get to that 1,000 degree on the ceiling where you can't manage it and control it. This thing will tell you it. It does have Bluetooth. It does have the ability to be transferred to a phone or an iPad, but it's one iPad at a time, meaning that you can't put all 6 of these on one iPad. You'd have to have 6 different iPads if you plan on doing multiple floor-based burns, right? On the connectors, all of yours, which is a little bit different maybe than the flashover container, there's 4 of them. So it's 2 on the inside, 2 on the outside of the burn room. There is a small probe and a big probe. The small probe goes in the small hole and the big probe goes on the big hole. If you push hard enough, yes, the big one will go in the small hole, right? So if you can't see the probes in the different sizes, put glasses on or hand it to somebody who can. And if you can't differentiate that, please. Okay, T-handles are these little locks. So you have a SCBA maze on the inside of this prop. It's in this container. We're gonna take it apart and put it back together with some sort of maze that's usable. It's in there for just storage, and at this point, these things fit really, really well in turnout pockets or back pockets of duty pants or all that kind of stuff. They are integral to the portion of putting this thing together. There's a whole bunch of them. Please try to put them in a place where you're going to be able to find them when you need them. I suggest painting them some sort of fluorescent color, because you notice on the inside the floor is black. And if you put a maze together and then try to go set this thing together or move it around or whatever and they fall on the ground, they're difficult to find. So, and if they're fluorescent, they're a little easier to see when they're just kind of laying around the drill site and that kind of stuff after you clean them up. All right, lastly, you do have a smoke distribution system on the inside that goes to a couple different of your, the enclosed connexes that are here. Again, theatrical smoke works really well for a bunch of different stuff. The distribution ports that they have in here we'll talk about as we walk through the prop. This one does take, again, a little bit of a delicate touch. It's not overbuilt, so firefighters with gloved hands and things like that are going to be able to manage this a bunch. There's a small little set screw on the back that comes out. Maybe. This little door opens, and then there's this little reservoir container on the inside. There's a small little container here. Here's the biggest problem with this is to get this thing to work right. This hose has to not get all bundled up when you guys put it back together, right? So if you're trying to do this in a hurry, or you're trying to do it with gloved hands or whatever, it's going to be something that's not necessarily going to work right. The other thing is, at the end of your trainings or for the couple days or whatever, you need to make sure that you run some, I think it's, what is it? Distilled water through it and that kind of stuff, and have somebody who can maintain it a little bit, because if you just let it sit, the stuff will crystallize just like any of your other ones will. It is a top distribution point, so it goes underneath the little distribution system that they have in there, and you have the ability to open and close some ports to fill the space. It does pretty good. It is a little finicky on, there's a remote control to make it work, and some of those kind of things. It'll take a little getting used to for you to be able to get it to where it works. I might reach out to like maybe Dutch. I'm sure they played with it a bunch now to get what setting works best for them, because they were playing with a bunch of different stuff with that in relation to time and duration and percentage and a bunch of those kind of things to get the best life out of it. So we'll play with it a little bit today, and you'll see some of those things, but it'll be something that you'll have to get used to a little bit for that. I wasn't able to get to where the distribution point is in there because of all the panels. There should be an electrical connection right next to it to be able to plug it in and be able to run it right there. All of the door latches are very similar. They all have two self-tappers that go into a rectangular piece of tubing with a piece of all thread and two little pins on there and a spring in the middle. Anything that is a movable item on any of the doors is something that you probably should put some sort of lube to, just like on the flashover container. It's going to be a place that's going to collect rust, or it's going to collect condensation and create rust that way on anything that's got fire directly near it, or you're going to have those thermal columns coming out of it. Even if it's not a double line door, it's going to have creosote get built up, and you're going to have to chisel away at it or use some white lithium grease to soften it up and some of those kind of things. So any of those places that move today are going to be things that are going to need maintenance related stuff to make that happen. Electrical outlets, there is a main panel that I will point out, which is right over there. That is the main panel for this. So you do have electricity, which means you probably have lights on the inside. Anytime you see a cap on something, that's for a pass-through, for you to be able to put either hose through it if you want to put hose through there, electrical through there, those kind of things. They're meant to spin off and be able to do some sort of pass-through on the inside of the prop in relation to that. They're all GFI related, so they'll either trip here or at the panel, right? If you get water in them or you start to have issues and problems with that. All right, questions about any of this stuff that we talked about? All right, moving around the side. All right, there is a forcible entry component here. Has a couple different layers to it. Outside is screen door based. Rebar works really well in here. They do include some 1/2-inch steel bar that is pretty thick to be able to do. But circ saw work here. On the inside of it is some flat stock to do a latching mechanism across, as well as the bars for you to be able to cut out a lock, something like that. So outside is all circ saw work. There are a couple protective items here to keep people from actually cutting the screen. So these take a fair amount of time before somebody goes through them. They're pretty easy to replicate. I don't think FTS sends any replacements for them, but it's a small piece of angle with a little piece of a bar on the outside of it that you can replicate, that's held with some self taps, so to keep the prop from getting damaged. On the inside, there are two different forcible entry problems. This one is ram based. doesn't have a ton of direct correlation to us as the fire service. We don't use battering rams very often. Your police partners that are on site might be able to use that on a regular basis. I don't necessarily know unless you just really want to take a sledgehammer to one of these things. On the inside of it, it has a long wood dowel that is what is broken out for that to work. This is a forcible entry problem based on the, I think it's very similar to, it's called the enforcer door. So it has both a high pin for a small dowel up here, as well as this piece of 1x2 steel that you can bend out to force it out to get the door to work. Pretty good because it's not exactly like a lot of forcible entry doors, especially with this long, deep channel because of the way it sets. So it's not a great place to teach fundamentals of forcible entry, right? For your gap set force and some of those kind of things. I wouldn't start people here, but this is really a really good forcible entry problem to put people on because it's going to be a little different. The adds and the forks will eventually work, but they need to understand what the mechanical advantage of those two things are and how they use them. And how to be able to move the tool appropriately to get a force off of it. But it's not going to be as clean as, say, one of the portable forcible entry doors or the blue doors or something like that. It's not going to be for those base fundamentals. It's going to be something that's going to stretch them a little bit as far as their understanding of what that tool looks like. Questions? All right. FTC connection for you to be able to plug and plumb. There are standpipes throughout this where you can connect and flow water from. There are sprinklers on the inside that you can take and flow for either simulation of sprinklers flowing in a commercial building or the ability to do water damage and those kind of salvage related things if you're interested in doing those kind of things. So this is one of the connections, another pass through on this side. There's on the first floor, they're not mechanical. This is the muck for a burn room, right? So again, one of those places, Class A burn rooms are messy. So it takes more work to actually get the stuff out than it did to put the stuff in. When you're done at the end of the day, and there just needs to be a place where all that mess goes. So this is one of the muck chambers for the bottom. Again, always closed when you're burning, open at the end of the day. Very much like the flashover container, at the end of the day, everything is closed in its closed position. We don't leave anything open for cooling, right? So that's what that's going to be. Coming around this side. All right, vent. You have a lot of cranks and openings on this thing. I chatted with Cap a little bit about labeling for your organization is going to be important because some of the stuff that is here works things that are on site that you can actually see. There are some cranks that you're not going to be able to see where it actually goes. So that labeling is going to be something that's pretty important. So vent for this burn room, it is designed for fire to come out of it. If you want to teach resetting from the outside and some of those kind of things, this is a good opportunity to do that. But I caution you with a couple things with that. Water mapping is a pretty entertaining science. There's a lot of stuff about water mapping that I think is really, really important. Most of your rooms that they do water mapping in are as wide as they are long, right? So they're usually squares. And they don't necessarily always go directly at what your fire problem is. They're either adjacent to it or it's below it or something like that. If you hang OSB here and have a fair amount of fire coming out of here, you're gonna insult the direct fire problem if you flow from any of these vents, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just they need to understand that it's not always going to be the same when they go to a bedroom fire where they're not going to get direct contact of water on the burning problems, right? That's one thing. Two, if you do water mapping with your in-service nozzles at whatever they are, 160, 180, and you're not necessarily burning the heat release rate of the items that you're going to in the field, they're going to see a faster result here than they would in the field, and it potentially has the ability to confuse them that they're not getting reset as fast in the field as they do down here. So you need to just make sure that they understand those things and potentially apply a lower GPM nozzle maybe for their fire attack and their water resets so the timing's right and the reaction is appropriate, right? And so they understand those two balances. I'm not advocating that you put couches and burn those types of fuels in this burn room. That's the only way to get that heat release rate, if that makes sense. So that's one of those things. For you as a cadre, you have to set it up right for them so they get the right result to learn those kind of things in relation, right? The other thing is if you put a bunch of OSB on the top to do water mapping, it's not gonna map right. Right? It's going to get obstructed. It's not going to go across the ceiling to the other side and come down like you would like to teach, and your angles are going to be all messed up and weird. So you're going to have to think about some of those things if you want to do that. It's not impossible to do, but you just can't throw a whole bunch of stuff in there and expect it to work right? You're going to have to put a little purpose and thought into it. All right, next item, garage door cutting prop. Put your panels in, use the T-handles to tighten it up against, and then you can do some garage door work for this piece. Pretty decent prop in relation to access and instruction. All right, cranks. All of these are that same double cam crank that the flashover container has. If you hear clicks, it's opening something. If you don't hear clicks, you're closing something. There isn't necessarily one here that like on the flashover container, you can open too far and it's going to over rotate and it won't then close, right? So there are a couple that we put a indicator on for you not to be able to open it too far, so it's not going to open too far. I do like indicators on the ones that you can't directly see the vent from where you're opening it. So there are a couple here that we'll put indicators on so you have an idea of what open is. And those different levels are important for you to be able to see that. So anything that is going to be above the first floor, burn room wise, has two openings to it. It's a 1402 requirement. You have to have two exits to any burn room. So inside the burn room, there's actually an exit to the outside, and then the exit to this side. Those can be used for a bunch of different things. You can have your stokers come in from the outside into that space because you have them approaching off of here. Like any other Connex that FTS builds, we don't encourage that you permanently attach anything to this space with screws or welding or anything like that. But if you wanted to put a temporary set of walls in here or something like that, that are going to be away from the main fire that comes out of here, that is going to slow people down as they come into this big open space, it's totally fine. Very similar to the flashover container, it has the 3 chains for you to be able to put OSB in if you would like. Pallet chair, we'll talk about how to stack pallets on the pallet chair in a configuration that's going to work really well for that. Maximum fuel load for this prop is going to be 5 sheets of OSB, so one on each side, 3 on the ceiling, 3 pallets, and a quarter bale of straw. All right, that is your maximum fuel load for this. Now, if you're using no OSB and you're only using pallets and straw, you can go ahead and go up to 5 pallets and a quarter bale of straw for that. right? So, or about a half bale of straw. And it's based on your heat release rate a little bit, and it's based on what your maximum temperatures are going to end up being in that space. So not everything has to be right. If you're doing you know, the 5 and 3 is really for what I'd call the advanced fire behavior model that you can teach. So all the flashover container stuff that you guys do, incipient growth, fully developed, down into vent limited, back up into fully growth, to recreate flashover based items or fire dynamic things and flow paths and all that kind of stuff is really nice there, because the students are all below that item and you're not on the same plane, and it's a nice place to teach. The up of it is right here, so you're going to be able to plumb from bottom and bring it all the way up here to fill this container. It does have these 2 items to open and close here for you to be able to do that. All right, so this is the top side. The burn room that's on that, that's below us. This is that flat roof prop. Again, this is going to take just a little bit of conversation before you do it, right? This is not going to be something that you can burn all day long without necessarily having the thought of doing some sort of flat roof vertical ventilation, because there are a set of internal hatches that have to be opened for you to get that result to come up. All right, so a couple things. This railing is removable. So if you are doing some vertical vent trailing and you don't want everybody to always have to come up the platform from a ladder, right? You can take and remove this. It does have, you're gonna have to I take that back, they moved that. All right, so this is completely removable, still has the protection chains for there, still remains OSHA compliant for you to be able to come from this roof onto there in relation to that. There are these connection points. So those connection points are going to look very similar to your connection points up on your high angle. Those are a rated place to tie people off, right? OSHA requires that any pitched roof has those connection points. The fire service doesn't necessarily abide by a lot of the pitched roof OSHA compliant related stuff. So that's why those are there. It's a requirement for FTS to put them there, because it does fit into the OSHA law for a pitched roof. If your agency has people tie off when they do vertical vent, that's where you would have them tie off. It wouldn't be onto the railing related stuff. All right, so again, the rated portions to anchor to are on the backside. 5,000 pounds per anchor, I believe, is what they're rated to. This is a change of direction, right? Now, you can take and put webbing around it and hang a pulley, right? But this is not something that you can actually tie something off to, because it's not